this will be the exercise for the Where to Put It chapter. We're going to open up Maya, import a rig into our scene, import the audio that I've provided. So that's from Natalie Dormer, Marjorie Tyrell, is that her name? In Game of Thrones. And you can follow along, try and create some shapes, put them in the timeline, and place them based off of if a shape is preparatory or explosive. You can follow along with me. I'll be showing you how I do it. I'll be using a library, I'll be using Animbot. You'll see me spending a lot of time focusing on the animation itself. Obviously for you at this stage, we're not too concerned with tracking mouth corners or the phrasing or having really well crafted shapes. What you can do is literally just animate the jaw. You can just animate the RX of the jaw and place that in your timeline to just train your ear and get used to listening to the audio and placing the shape either on the sound, before the sound, how many frames before, and get a feel for that. So that's what I'd like you to do. So let's get into the scene and figure out where to put it. Alright, so for this exercise, we're gonna import the audio file that you have access to. You're going to import whichever rig you want to use for this. So I have the G-Yun rig here from Wonderwell. I've given her a bit of a haircut and turned off her glasses just to add a little bit of variation. And I also have the picker open. So obviously the first thing you're going to do when you open your Maya scene is you're going to import your rig. So you'll create a reference. You'll go to where your rig is. So mine is here, Gene rig, reference. That'll bring her in. And the next thing we're going to do is import the audio. So in your timeline, we can right click here, audio, import audio. And again, a window will pop up. So it pops up. I have my audio here and I will import it. Now, usually you might be starting on frame 1, maybe 1001. Right now, because I'm using an old scene, my first frame is going to be 1273. So whenever you have an audio and you need to offset that audio, you can right click, go to audio. Actually, let me just show you first my outliner. You can see in my outliner I have the audio here. To make it active, I'll click make active, right click, make active sound, and make sure that it's using that audio for this scene, because maybe you have multiple audios in your scene and you want to select which one. You can see it here too. You can select it here, you can turn it off. This was the other audio I had in my scene from the grandmother dialogue that I did. So yeah, so we're going to go to the new audio. I'm going to open the options box, and in the attribute editor here, what we're going to do is offset. Right now it's at 0, so I want it to start at 1273. So I just type in 1273 here, and you can see now it starts here. And what I'm going to do now, obviously, is just set my little timeline 1309. I'm just going to set it like that so it fills up the whole bar, so it's easy to see, it's easy to select the keys. Alright, now the other thing I would suggest you do, obviously we are, for this exercise, just going to focus on when the shapes are happening. We're not too worried about making beautiful shapes and beautiful motion. That's going to come later in the course. What this exercise is about is listening to the audio, listening where we have consonants, vowels, where shapes should be blocked, should be open, and getting a feel for placing shapes in the timeline and seeing how that sounds when we watch it back. So right now you're going to see me use the picker, which obviously comes with the rig when you buy it. And you're also going to see me use Animbot to select things. So Animbot, obviously the best tools you could find for animating. It's incredible. Lots of tutorials available online to learn about Animbot. One of the tools is, of course, to make selection sets. So when you select a group of controls, don't want to select the geo. When you select a group of controls, you can then click a button to make a button for those controls that you've selected. So when I'm animating the face, when I make pickers for a feature film, I have lots of different groups that select different things. In this instance, because we're going to be focusing on the mouth for this exercise, I have a button that selects all the mouth, a button that selects just one side of the mouth. So you can see all the controls are selected on her right side of the face, and I have a button for selecting all the controls on the left side of the face. And when you have multiple buttons like this, you can easily then, along with the library, blend in some asymmetry, blend in some other shapes to specific controls or a broad part of the face. So in this instance, I could dial in, let's say, we got a smiley M here. So for instance, I could middle mouse drag, and you see that that's just affecting this side of the face. So we have our timeline and our shot. Just going to select all the mouth, set a key on the first frame. Now we've heard which dialogue we've chosen.
I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it.
So we're going to talk about phrasing and appeal in motion later on in the course. Obviously with this dialogue, although we know the words are "I've never seen anything like it," the way she's saying it isn't accentuating all of these syllables. That's where phrasing comes into play. We really need to listen to the sound, and we're going to focus on the main beats, the main accents that we hear. So think of it more like music in a way. Right now when I listen to the audio, I can hear the biggest accents are never and like. I've never seen anything like it. So I've and seen anything, and it, small, never, like, a big. So I'll teach you later how we break that down, find that musicality. Right now we're going to focus on where these shapes are happening, but it's just to point out that I'm going to be picking certain shapes, already understanding the fact that we need to simplify and use phrasing to make this believable and appealing. So the first frame we know is going to be, if when you're scrubbing, the volume seems a bit low, you can adjust that if you go to audio, adjust volume, have a little slider here. Just going to bump this up because I find it hard to hear what's going on. Okay, so I can hear it better now. So what I do, I scrub in the timeline. And I'm listening out for those beats, those accents, places where we have shapes that we need to see in order to read the dialogue. I mean, for me, we need some sort of open mouth at the beginning of the shot. I might even just, because this cuts in right on the sound, and sometimes that happens when you're animating on a production, but for the purpose of this test, I'm just going to offset the sound a little bit more just so we have a bit of breathing room to add the shapes that we need to. So when you see that there's not a lot of activity going on in the timeline here, I know this is roughly where that V shape, that FV shape is coming in. And right now I'm using the library. We haven't touched, later on there'll be a chapter where we talk about making the library. For the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to be using this library, but you can be creating the shapes. You can also just be using the draw. We can just be focusing on open and blocked shapes. So every time I'm putting in a shape, you can just be either opening the drawer or closing the drawer. But let's go. So I want it to be kind of narrow. So, okay, FV shape is in, but I've put it on where I hear the FV happening. And we know I want that to be earlier, 2 frames earlier, because it's not a poppy sound, it's a preparatory shape. It goes into a N eventually. First frame, I want a mouth open and I want it to be fairly small. Okay. Now here, I'm hearing the of never. And we said it's one of the biggest shapes, so I mean she's not shouting, is she? I mean this would be like she's singing quite broadly, so I think we could go with something like that. And it's poppy. I'm gonna leave it there for now because I'm gonna add in the because we're blocking. One thing that's really helpful to do is if you open up your preferences and you go into animation, we're just gonna set our in tangent to linear and our out tangent to, where is it, steps. So we have linear and step. And basically what this is gonna do is every time you set a key, it's just gonna hold that key until the next key, because we don't want to have things in between as we're blocking. It's very distracting. So in my graph editor, I'm also going to set the keys we have done to stepped. So now you can see it's not moving from one key to the next. So for me, this would obviously is the tongue on the roof of the mouth. So I'm going to select the mouth. I'm going to deselect the tongue because I want to keep the tongue on the roof of the mouth. And I'm just going to find a shape that's a little narrower. Maybe this. I'm just going to blend. So depending on your picker, in this instance the MG picker is cool because if you press Alt and click, you end up selecting the control you click on as well as the opposite side. But it's super handy when obviously you're again wanting to select groups of controls and you want to blend them to the next frame or blend in a shape from them.